Good evening, I'm Andrea Anderson.
I'm Brian Allen. As families consider moving to the state to fill job openings, many of them will also be searching for affordable daycare. I-Team reporter Beth Warden continues our daycare crisis series tonight with a look at possible solutions and how to make them a reality.
Imagine developing a neighborhood where streets are built, the water lines are in, but after the homes are constructed, there's a realization there's no electricity. Those in the child care industry say as South Dakota develops jobs and businesses, there's a realization something is missing, and that's affordable daycare. It seems with every Little Tykes University that opens, eager families enroll their kids. Owner Corey Poor sees how quality childcare affects not only families, but the growth of our state.
Let's make sure that we do create a South Dakota that people can live and work in, and it starts with the most important piece, this early childhood education.
A report from the Sioux Falls Child Care Collaborative offers solutions.
We already have this roadmap in the form of this 97-page report. Let's start chipping away at that thing.
Michelle Erpenbach and Rana DeBoer offer the solutions found among those pages.
The research is done. We understand the problem. As a community, it's coming together with some funding to say, who is it that we can put in a position of leadership to continue the work to carry out the solutions?
They believe a collaborative effort is needed.
Yes, that means government, but it also means business. And it might mean others. It might be philanthropy. There are lots of options. We have to think about it from that holistic aspect.
Another key to a successful daycare industry is supporting the entrepreneurs operating the child care locations and providing training for future caregivers.
The community really does understand that this is a crisis, that this could be a barrier to Sioux Falls' future growth.
Employers can also help.
Download the workplace toolkit that gives business leaders really just a 1, 2, 3 step-by-step and very practical and approachable resources and tactics they can take inside their organization.
A unified message is echoing from many parents, educators, and caregivers. The current way of delivering childcare and early education is not sustainable.
And I would love to see commitment on the part of our lawmakers, our community leaders, and even parents and teachers at large to find something in that report and do something. The state of our industry will depend on it.
In Sioux Falls, Beth Warden, Dakota News Now.
As a part of our daycare series, we've compiled an exclusive comprehensive view of all daycares in the region in Minnehaha County, noting any violations from inspections or self-reporting. You can find that information plus links to search childcare inspections across the state at dakotanewsnow.com.